Welcome to our YouTube channel. Thanks for tuning in today. This is the 32 sword form section. So if you hadn't had a chance to watch the introduction, just so you can get a basic concept of what we're talking about, take a second and watch that one. We're going to break this one down, and this one is the first movement, referred to as the beginning movement. It's also, the actual name we call is 3 rings around the moon. It's also called 3 rings circle the moon 3 times, 3 halos around the moon, standing with feet together. There's multiple names on here, but we'll refer to this as 3 rings around the moon. So this is the first movement. It incorporates the beginning sec and then the first couple of moves within this. This is a longer opening move than you would traditionally see in a Tai Chi form, so just follow along as we go through this. Detailed instruction with this. So as you've seen, there are several different components to this movement. It's not just a simple beginning movement like we would have in regular Tai Chi. So let's break down through the individual pieces, and I'll just explain as we're going through. So I'll do the front version here, and then we'll turn around and we'll do it there so you can follow along. So first movement, we are standing, we are in natural stance, we are vertical, top of our head pulled up just like in our traditional Tai Chi forms. Our hand is holding the sword here, we're gripping it here, our hands around, and our finger is flowing down through there. Now it's very important that you keep the flatness of the sword to the back. You don't want to turn it. Remember one of our rules here, we don't want to turn it because it's a real blade. We don't want it to cut into us. So natural stance here, it's just resting on the forearm here and going down through. So our rest point here. Our right hand is on the hip, it's flat, it's relaxed at this point. Then we're going to slowly shift our weight over to the right. We're going to step out with our movement here, slowly shift our weight across, adjust our right foot, bring it back to straight forward. Then we're going to lift our hands here, and at this point we're going to shift, and instead of doing a traditional movement here, we're going to step in this direction. And what we're doing is we're taking the sword hand here, and here becomes the first of our circles, here and here with this. So the movement here shifts. I'm going to cover with the left, reach with the right, step to the left and flow through and strike with the right hand. The left hand blocks out to the side. So this is very much like brush knee with this movement, in that your hand comes, it does a circle, comes across, and presses out. We only need to go outside the shoulder here so that we're stopping. The flatness here is pushed out to the side, so it is actually blocking through. So we come through and strike. The second movement, we are just bringing the left hand up, taking the sword and clearing as if somebody were grabbing onto our wrist, clearing it across, stepping across here and into a cross step, and then crouching down, sinking through, and striking out to the sides. Our attention is here. Now, how deep you go on this is really going to be based on your stance and your stance ability. So if you can only go here, that's fine. But you really want to work it down into a rest step. So my left knee is at the top of my right ankle. From here, I'm going to come up slightly, step forward with the left into a mountain climbing stance, bring the right hand forward, grab the sword, then bring the right foot forward and bring them together as I spear forward. Now the sword hand here is supporting the right hand, so sword secret extends forward, and this is the end of the movement. Slightly down as you spear forward with that particular movement. Okay? Common mistakes with this are really going to be more along the lines of, remember, this is a blade, so the turning points with the stances, the turning points with the blade is usually what we'll see with somebody. If it's just a piece of wood, people are apt to do something like this and to do that. So again, treat this like it's a real sword as we go through. So common mistakes here. As we shift our weight over, we're stepping out too far. We're not stepping far enough as we go through there. Your distance here should be about shoulders width. So if you have wider shoulders and wider hips, you can step out a little bit more. As you bring your hand up, the right hand here is an open hand here, and then as you start to bring it up, it shifts into a sword hand. Now, this is a good sword hand. So you have a roundness with your hand, and your two fingers form a sword. What we'll see a lot of times is people doing, sort of loose hands and making all kinds of fun gestures with their hands. But you really want to think in terms of this as being a sword. If your right hand were on here, it actually would be a sword, all right, in going through this. But this is a sword here, and then when you transition to putting the sword in your right hand, your left hand is going to be a sword here. So make sure you're making a good sword hand with this. So as we coming through, if you remember this is just being a brush knee, this movement's a lot simpler. But you want to think in terms of coming to cover and then stepping forward. So some mistakes we see are people just not reaching across and coming through, just jerky movements with the sword as you're going through. This is a smooth transition here, step, block, and strike. So make sure it flows just like your brush knee movements do, and go through there. On the twist step, some of the things that we'll see is not stepping across in front, stepping too close to the side so that your stances are off. If you think in terms of where my left foot is here, as my right foot comes across, it's in front. So that sinking is simple. If I bring it too close, I have to twist in order for the left knee to go into the right foot. If I bring it too far forward, I can't reach it. So you really want to adjust your feet as you come through to being the back of the right foot is slightly in front of the left foot. So that transition stance here. The strike out. This is a simultaneous strike in both directions. So what we'll see is somebody striking once and then striking, or striking here and striking up. This is out to the side. And then as you step forward in transition, you want good footwork. You don't want to come into a line. You want to open your hips and step. Bring the right hand forward to grab, shift, and spear forward. Slightly down at an angle, but forward. What we'll see a lot of times is people, especially those of you that are watching the 42, you'll bring your foot up here because you're so accustomed now to bringing that movement up here and doing that. This one, the foot comes all the way up, feet together. Remember, one of the names is standing with feet together, so that's indicative of this particular move. So the application part of this, there are three different components to there, okay? We've already talked in terms of the brush knee. So if you think back to our Tai Chi lessons, brush knee is a covering here, sweeping through and pressing down. So if I want to think about what's the application here, I'm going to have a strike coming in from the side, and we'll do this in this case of a spear coming in through the side for this. So my lovely assistant will come over here and actually demonstrate in this case. So what you want to think about in terms of here is just, so a spear here, what you want to do is you want to focus on bringing the spear on top. This is where it's important to keep that blade flat, because here is the movement here, and then I'm going to turn it out. So if I think in terms of I bring it up and I stick it down, well, now my blade's cutting into the spear and it's going to get stuck. Whereas if I bring it up here and I block, it's not going to get stuck. And so then I turn and I just move it out. And so as she's coming forward with this, I'm blocking, stepping in with my movement, and then coming forward to strike her. So whether it's a sword or whether it's anything else, you've got to think in terms of this part first, and then the moving it out of the way part with that. So that's the first one. The second one, the strike here is she's retreated, I'm just moving forward and striking forward with the hilt of the sword. So coming out with this one, I'm going to go out into this particular direction, and then again, for the final piece of this as she's retreating, I'm just moving up, stepping, and spearing in with this. So visualize those as you're actually going through that. But the first one, and the one that we see the most that people don't understand, is this one here, and it's just part of your brush knee, understanding that if you do a good brush knee and you're doing that cover and press with your hands, it's easy to translate into the sword technique and make sure that you're doing it with that. for the before and after piece of this, obviously this is the first movement, so it's not so much of a problem of what comes before, but the movement actually goes through, and then as we end this movement here, our movement here is going to be stepping back, and we're going to go into the second movement. So that's why it's important that you just bring this foot forward and strike forward, because we're going to step back and move into the second movement here, Big Chief Star. So you want to get that first one down, spearing forward, and then you're going to step back. So watch the second video as we go through this, but that is the opening movement, 3 rings around the moon. Thanks for watching. Practice this. I'll go through and I'll do a couple sequences of this so that you've got something to follow along, and I'll do it in this case, I'll do it the reverse angle so you can see how it actually works with the form itself.